Hello, you guys. Welcome back to my channel. And if you guys are new here, welcome. And if you guys haven't already, definitely hit the subscribe button right there, right in the corner. And today I'm going to sit down with one of the founding fathers of the House of Tisci, Father Gunner Tisci. And we are going to talk about Lil Nas X and his 2021 BET performance and all of the underlining issues that need to be talked about. I think it's imperative for everyone who is Black or brown in the community to really talk about underlining issues of why people feel the way they feel about this performance and performances like this, and just about the LGBT community in general. So you guys, please, this is going to be one for the books. It's going to be a long one, so make sure you grab your popcorn, your favorite drink, a good little meal, something that's going to keep you down. And really, I hope you guys get some very knowledgeable information from this conversation, because we're going to dive in deep, like I said. You guys, and thank you so very much. We hit 12K, you guys. We literally were just at 11K 2 weeks ago. Now we hit 12. We're rising, you guys. And again, thank you guys so much. Sending nothing but love and hugs. And without you guys, my channel will be nothing. So we are moving up, you guys. And I am so happy that you guys are here and you are enjoying this YouTube ride with me. So without further ado, I present to you one of the founding fathers of the House of Tisci, Father Gunner Tisci. First of all, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on my platform again. Literally everyone loved you from the last time we were together. And you guys, if you guys didn't catch, this is one of the founding fathers of the House of Tisci, Father Gunner Tisci. So thank you so much for coming on, babe. Totally appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me again. And I did a big no, right? They tell us, don't read the comments. And I read the comments and I was like, oh my God. It was, like you said, I was so well received. I was just pleasantly surprised. But no, thank you for continue to have this platform and continue to talk about all things our community. It's an honor to be here with you on your journey with you and just have intersected in this way. So
yes, thank you so much. And I think it was a very important thing for me to bring you on, especially to talk about this topic that we're going to talk about today, which is Lil Nas X and his BET 2021 BET performance. So first and foremost, let's get straight into it. I'm going to ask you a series of questions about what you think, how the performance was overall, and of course, I have my subscriber questions. They're going to ask you some stuff. And what did you think about the performance?
I thought the performance was everything that it needed to be. It was intentional. It was provocative. I think performance-wise, he still has some growth to do as a performer, right? All the messaging and what he's performing and why he's performing aside, just looking at it as pure delivery of the performance. I think he has some more to grow, but I think he's done really, really well. Coming from the days of Old Town Road and performing in gymnasiums in front of kids, just kind of bouncing around, even to performances that we've seen as little as a year or so ago, you can definitely tell that he puts more thought into choreography and production value, those type of elements of the production. So there's definitely been an increase there. So we're always happy to see that. But that's pretty standard and typical of artists. Artists aren't always primed and conditioned to deliver their art to the world in the way that the world wants to receive it. And so for a music artist, right, that's concerts and things of that nature. But we think back over lots of great artists. For a while, I didn't think Nicki was really great on stage. To me, Mariah's still not one of the greatest people on stage.
Yeah.
There's just certain things that people are good at doing, but that doesn't negate their art. It just means that how they were brought to deliver art wasn't in that form. And unfortunately, part of this capitalistic engine, that has to be an element to it. So they give in and they do what they can, but it's not their thing. And that's completely okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But for him, I thought the overall value of the production was great. That's just the production.
Okay. And then I did want to give my feedback as well. I think that the performance was good for Lil Nas X.
Right.
I think that his his performing skills have improved. I think that he's getting more comfortable. I think he definitely more comfortable.
Definitely more
Yeah,
comfortable.
for sure more comfortable. And just from, like you said, Old Town Road to now, it's a total 360. And shout outs to the MJ tribute that he did.
Yeah,
Shout out to
totally.
the MJ tribute that he did, the death of his anniversary. Like, like I totally loved all that, the inspiration behind all of those things. And which let's dive more deeper into this conversation, which a lot of people had some either issues or not so much issues with. And so this is going to lead me into what everybody wants to talk about, which is my subscriber.
The juicy stuff.
The juicy stuff. The first comment that I decided to pick was another way to demasculinize the God-chosen Black man, propaganda to its finest. Now, I want you to really try to break that down for people and what you think about that comment.
Okay. So I think number one, on surface, without even knowing the person making the comment is loaded, very loaded, right? Number one, all Black people are chosen. So there's not a particular one of us that is chosen. The position that Lil Nas X is in right now isn't due to some religious backing. This is due to a capitalistic systemic engine backing him and putting him at the forefront for the art he's created. So there's no ordained space for him to be in that other Black people couldn't occupy. So I think it's a lot to put that on one person, especially a 20-year-old kid, right? Yes, 20-year-old is legal, but to me, as anybody that follows me knows that 20s to me is a kid. So for them to try to put all of that somehow he's a single driving force that's supposed to come and demasculinate or emasculate Black men is just an asinine statement just on surface, the way it was worded. So it sounds, when I hear statements like that, and you can tell that they kind of juxtapose even like their natural order and reality, it just seems like, okay, this is a person who regurgitates things. So before the audience, so what the person is trying to say, I believe, is that Lil Nas X, like many before him, have been put here to emasculate Black men and to effeminize Black men so that the Black family and the Black power structure and all of that can be taken over by white supremacy. It's hotepery language. It's really like, I'm pro-Black, but really don't do the work of being pro-Black. I'm really anti-Black language, right? Because again, with that statement, number one, you're denying his autonomy and his intersection as a Black man. He's Black, he's a man, he's gay, he's queer identifying, he's effeminate in many ways. There's a lot of nuance about him that is being denied, and his own autonomy and his agency that's being denied with the very thought of that question, that he somehow has to be something else for the face of Black men. That's on one side. The other side of it too is very misogynoir. It's very patriarchal. It's very misogynistic, because the undertone of that statement is there's something wrong with being effeminate, and therefore something wrong with being feminine, therefore something wrong with being a woman who are typically feminine, or who are typically feminine bodies as we as a society has defined feminine. There's always been this issue with the feminine, whether it's housed in a woman's body, right? We see in the last couple of weeks all the conversations about what women should and shouldn't have in their hair. Should women get abortions? All these things that men are always deciding about them. Should women dress this way or look this way or act this way? It's typically been decided by a room full of men. Absolutely. Right? Yes. Based on where men have placed women historically and where we want them to be placed as being subjugated to men. So it's so much to unpack in that statement, but really what I want to say to that is that's bullshit. It's not his responsibility to be nothing but autonomous to himself, number one. Number two, he's been very forthcoming with his agenda. His agenda, like you started this off, right? We started this off talking about being comfortable and all of that, right? He like being comfortable in his performance. He's comfortable in making people uncomfortable. And not for the sense of just being an asshole. It really is to be an antagonist so that you can be a catalyst for true progression.
I think it's the catalyst.
Yeah, he wants to be an antagonist so that he can be a catalyst for true progression. because his thing is until those on the very fringes of society who are different, who are weird, who are outcasted, the punks, the goths, the gays, the queers, the trans, the nerdy person, the fat person, the short person, until all of those people can get up here and dance and shake their ass like we watched Janet and Madonna and Britney and Whitney and Michael and Prince and all these people do for many years, until all these other people that don't fit that representation of what the world wants to see can do and have the same autonomy, then he's going to keep edging it on, right? So I was having a conversation, and you may bring this up, but I'll just use this really quickly. I was having a conversation with someone earlier about that so-called like this gay agenda, right? Which is kind of the undertone of this statement too, right?
Yeah,
to demasculate the fact that
right.
we have this gay agenda. And yes, for a long time, as LGBT people were arguing, there is no agenda, there's no agenda. But I'm a person that likes to speak power to things instead of take power away from things. And yes, there is an agenda. Our agenda is to normalize our existence so that we can participate and behave in society in the same way that everyone else does. When I go to a grocery store, I see husband and wife hugging. When I go to a club, when I'm outside at the park, I see boyfriend and girlfriend kissing. When I'm in elementary schools, I see little boys and girls writing letters saying, do you like me? Check yes, no, or maybe. We see little dances. We take our children on play dates. Our straight children, we take our heterosexualized, I don't even want to say straight, because at that time they may not even know. We take our heterosexualized children on homogenic play dates. Right? So we are very in the business as a society of pushing a heteronormative agenda for normalcy. And so what he's doing is pushing that agenda. So now that we've seen Lil Nas X do that, guess what? There's some little butch queen somewhere who isn't that out there on the fringes that can now be a little bit more himself. I often talk about the fact that one of the things that really bothers me is that in our community, and as some of your guests may or may not know, but as you introduced, I am Founding Father Gunner Tisci. So when I say our community, oftentimes I'm talking about the intersection of LGBT and Black and Latinx ballroom space, right? I'm often dumbfounded when I hear people talk about, oh, that's too much, they doing too much, there's a time and place. And it's typically people who have some sort of passing privilege, some sort of pretty privilege that could blend without getting their ass beat, right? Mm-hmm. And they're comfortable now sitting at a table that was built by people who used to get their asses beat for being themselves. Like myself sitting here in my whole cis male passability that I could have walking down the street, all of that to the drag queens and femme queens and the weirdos of society before me that made everyone so uncomfortable that they'd rather have me at the table, right? So that's the thing we often forget. We're like, well, I'm doing the work. I'm here at the table. You're here at the table. I'm here at the table. No shade, sis. You're at the table because we are more palatable in our bodies than other people who are also part of our community, right? You're a gorgeous, beautiful woman, which is going to give you way more agency than, a darker skin, taller, big hands, big feet, type of trans woman. A non-passable trans woman. Right. And but same thing with myself. I'm going to get more access than someone who's unattractive or, X, Y, and Z. And so we have to be cautious that we're not comfortable at the expense of someone else's discomfort who we're now telling, no, you're being too extra.
Right. And that was my thing. I think it's very imperative for us to have whatever society deems norm, to include and really, really embrace those people that do not have these passing privileges, the pretty privileges that we might have. So it's just kind of like, I think that was a very, very well articulated statements that you have said so far. And honestly, you kind of dove into a lot of these comments that I was going to say already.
No problem. We can rehash them.
So speaking about then going into this next comment, I picked one kind of negative comment, and then this next comment, I wanted to go, back and forth between negative and positive, right? Because I think it's important to hear both sides of the spectrum of this conversation. This next subscriber said, why do you think people are in an uproar about Lil Nas X kissing, but I haven't heard anyone complain about Megan Thee Stallion and Young Mommy kissing? Also, I don't remember people being on uproar when Madonna kissed Britney Spears and Christina Aguilera neither. I personally think Lil Nas X had the best performance of the night, and that dance break was everything. What do you think about that comment?
So again, another comment where there's a lot of things happening at once. There is definitely some validity in the fact that when women do things of the homosexual nature in society, it doesn't receive as much backlash. And the reason why I say as much, because I'm old enough to remember that Britney Spears and Madonna kiss, and it actually did receive a lot of backlash.
It did.
It did receive a lot of backlash. But to the point that I think that the subscribers is trying to get to is that, again, in society, going back to what I was stating earlier about patriarchy and misogyny, right? Men on the social stratosphere, on that hierarchy, we see women as less than. So women are able to behave in ways that are less than with some type of autonomy, number one. Number two, it also feeds into that male ego about it's okay for a man to fantasize about two women having sex together, because that doesn't threaten the hegemony of the family, doesn't threaten, the social structure, the social order. You don't have the people in power having sex with each other. Right? Because let's be clear, the whole phallus and the whole sexual intercourse, for the most part, and for most people, while pleasurable, is also a thing of power, right? In our community, we think about the tops and the bottoms, and the way that bottoms are often relegated and mistreated the same way that we do women, right? Because you are at this point being the penetrated, so you are supposed to be the powerless. So when you have like this whole power structure between men, and we beat on our chest for so long and set up this structure that, we don't take no shit, and men, the whole thing gambit about men, right? So when you now have something that's counter to that, it shocks the entire social order of patriarchy and misogyny. So that's why it's so debilitating to people, I think. And again, it's one of those things where I've talked about this before in my lives, is the prison that you build is the prison that you ultimately have to guard. Right? So you ultimately build a prison for yourself, because you can't build a prison without having prison guards. And then now the guards are working there, and they're in prison as well. And so that's what patriarchy and misogyny has done to us, right? We wanted to relegate women to these arenas where they can only perform in this space. But then what that does is not only does it harm women, it also harms men from being able to perform in those spaces. Simple emotions like crying and being vulnerable are not open to men, because we built that up as a societal space only for women. So now men are weak, and you're this and you're that. If you show a bodily given, God-given, if we want to talk about God, because the first question, everyone wants to invoke God.
We're going to talk about God, because this is
still... I'm saying, but like people want to invoke God and how like the family structure and this and that, then one of those things is having emotions, being sad, crying, being vulnerable, loving. But we built up a societal structure that doesn't allow that for men, right? So, it's... Again, I think too, sometimes people use the wrong quotes to try to get a point across, because again, with that Madonna scene, there was some backlash. And then even going to the Megan Thee Stallion and all of that, even going back as far as WAP, right? WAP, you had entire congressmen and congresswomen wanting to have congressional meetings about whether or not this song should be allowed to be played on the radio. So there is, and it's interesting, because again, me, I can talk about these topics all day. Mm-hmm. There's such an intersection, right? So in this intersection, you have the policing of homosexuality. You have the policing of Black bodies in performative spaces in general. You have the policing of Black and brown sexuality, right? Because Black women and Black and brown women, Black and brown men are often either over-sexualized, number one, or denied autonomy to their own sexualization, right? So you could, like, society can sell a woman sex and make her the harlot and make her this on television, but the moment she does WAP, it's like there's an issue. But men rap about pussy all day, but if a woman raps about her pussy, all of a sudden we have a problem, right? So it's again about this thing, going back to what I said about the first question. It's the thing about autonomy, and we often want to have control over people's autonomy. But there is a quote that I want to read that kind of ties all this together, and it comes from What It Feels Like for a Girl by Madonna. Ironically, Madonna, a pioneer kind of in this space, problematic in some ways, but definitely a pioneer in the LGBT ally space. I would consider her, I guess, one of the early A's before we added on all the letters, right? So I just want to read this. Girls can wear jeans and cut their hair short, wear shirts and boots because it's okay to be a boy. But for a boy to look like a girl is degrading. because you think that being a girl is degrading, but secretly you'd love to know what it's like, wouldn't you? What it feels like for a girl.
Absolutely. And it just goes to your points, which you were speaking about earlier. That's exactly what was stated. Now that I wanted to go into this other comment that one of the subscriber has for you was, love how a non-Egyptian person represented us Egyptians and used my ancestors and my culture as an aesthetic. Can Western artists stop appropriating my culture? Or when they do, can they please make it look good? Like, don't make it look like a cheap Halloween costume.
Okay, so yeah, gosh, they came with the packed on questions. I think these kind of people on my lives and stuff because they.
But you see what I'm saying? Which I'm happy. These are the reasons why I decided to bring you on, because you literally articulate your words so perfectly that people can really try to have a different perspective of it,
right?
Instead of thinking of what we were grown up or structured to say or do. So right. My thing is, first, I want to just point out, everyone is entitled to have an opinion, a thought, and however they need to perceive a topic, right? Now where these conversations that me and you are having, it's enlightening to get both aspects of each topic, right? So this is the conversation is what needs to happen. I think
correct.
So with that,
all right. So with that, yes, there is a Western appropriation issue with non-Western cultures.
Yes.
Period, point blank, not disagreeing there. Where I will deviate a little bit is what's performative by Black bodies that are the originators of almost all arts, right?
Yeah.
There's something, and this can align to ballroom. There's one thing to appropriate, and then there's quite another thing to emulate, even in poor construction and in poor performance, or to tap into. Right? So like, for instance, with ballroom, a lot of times people can make the argument that we're appropriating outside cultures. When you say, bring it like a doctor and bring it like a this and bring it like a that and bring it like a that, our intent isn't to be a mockery. Our intent is to say, if given the space and autonomy and access to these things, I probably could fulfill this dream of being this kind of person. I could have been this person in ballroom. When it comes to Black art, yes, we are westernized in a lot of ways that we take on things. But we have to also understand that there's something innate about us of wanting to perform other cultural responses, because we have also been denied agency and access to our true history and our culture. And so there's something deep down that sees a liken in these other cultures, right? Because we know we know we're not descendant of white Western dominant culture. Right? So we must come from something else. That's why Black people love to do a Cinco de Mayo and I forget the Leprechaun Day, the Green St. Patrick's Day, all these like different cultural aspects, because as people, we're also grasping for straws and looking for identity. Yeah, no, so to the subscriber, I would just say, make sure that you're able to kind of segment out the two, right? There's imitation as a sincere form of flattery, and then there's imitation because I want to steal and take it over, right? And also Black and brown bodies have rarely, if ever, been in the position to appropriate culture and capitalize off of it, right? Typically when we're doing that, it's more performative. We're not taking something, selling it, repackaging it, and calling it our own, right? You have to be right. You have to be in a position of power to do that, to gentrify a culture. You have to be in a position of power to now package it and resell it as something else. Yes. And that's not what is happening here. There may be some level of disrespect to the level of authenticity. So maybe, and I would suggest this to Lil Nas X or anybody that's doing something that is cultural that they are not deeply rooted in, get some people in that culture into the room and say, hey, I want to give a tribute to what I'm doing here. So how do I do it with some level of authenticity, right? Because like I think about that, and then I think about this recent couple albums by Beyonce, and different people having different opinions about her invoking, the Orishas and African culture, right? But to my understanding, it's the people that I know that were involved. She identifies with that, right? As a Black woman, she wants to tap back into that. She's a Black woman misplaced in Western culture, so she doesn't have that traditional learning of the culture. So she brought people in and said, "Hey, I want to give some authenticity to this idea and this thing that I'm having." And so I attest that to Lil Nas X's immaturity in the arena, right? And immaturity in this space that he's in, that he wanted to kind of give some reference to it.
Okay, so the next comment I wanted to state to you was, I think it's great that the community has been shooting for tolerance for so long and it's clearly not working. So I like this new strategy imposed. Make them uncomfortable, let them gag and choke on it. What do you think about that comment?
I'm 100% with it. And honestly, and it's not just about our community, right? So that was kind of my thing, my own personal growth. The more that, I started out, we're inputs of our environment and what we hear, what we learn. And so I wanted to fight for just visibility of LGBT, ballroom, right? That, and that's still one of my driving forces.
It stemmed from that. It stemmed from the ballroom.
From that. And from that, the more and more I got into it and really started paying attention to the world around me, it became my fight for trans women, my fight for women in general, my fight for disabled bodies, or non-abled bodies, my fight against ageism. Because what it really becomes is, until the least of us, again, what I was saying earlier, until the least of us have autonomy over who we want to be in spaces when we're not imposing ourselves on other people, then none of us have that freedom. And when I say imposition, I don't mean on your comfort or on your sensibilities. When I mean an imposition is if I come into a space and I'm taking seats from somebody, or I'm knocking over tables or doing something like that, now I'm a physical imperative on someone else's autonomy. But if I come in a store and I have on a skirt, I am doing absolutely zero harm to anybody that can be measured. They may have sensibilities against that. They may not personally like that, but the divine order made all of us unique. So we're not supposed to fit in. We're not supposed to make people comfortable. There's a reason all of us is unique. If we were supposed to be uniform, then we would have been uniform. We would all look the same way. I often tell this to my kids. God doesn't create in straight lines. We knock over shit and make straight lines and then call it perfection, right? Yeah. So there is no way that we're supposed to be. Men aren't supposed to wear pants and women wear skirts, because if women started wearing pants and men started wearing skirts, absolutely zero changes about our autonomy, absolutely zero changes about giving birth, about breastfeeding, about walking, talking, singing, breathing, any of that. Nothing changes. So we've created this false sense of what we're supposed to do out of thin air and bullshit. And so, yes, continue to push. The one thing I will say, a little bit pushback on the statement, is that whether it's visible to all people or not, what he's doing is what what communities have always done. They've always pushed them, made them gag, and make them choke, right? Yes. It sounds like, but what happens is it's like a wave. So you have this beginning of the wave. The beginning of the wave is pushing. It's pushing water, right? So the Sylvia Riveras, the Marsha P. Johnson, they're pushing it. And so they're really making people gag and making people choke. And then you have the latecomers that kind of come from the back end, and they think that they're doing it the palatable way. But the only reason you're able to do it the palatable way is because the initial wave is all the way up there now.
Yes, yeah.
It's like you get to speed down a highway because I bulldozed all the cars out of the way, and now you're complaining about me because I'm moving slow or because I'm doing this. And it's like, but baby, you're able to speed from 3 miles back there. You didn't see me pushing all those cars that went in your way. You didn't see me move those for you. Yeah. Right. So fringe communities, not just gay, just fringe communities in general, goth, emos, witches back in the day. We hear about the Salem witch trials and people who want to practice voodoo, Hadum, different religious practices. People have always made people choke and made people gag, and that's what's always pushed the needle. So I on that sense, I agree. Always make them gag, make them choke. I often tell people all the time, I enjoy being a butch queen. Right. I actively participate in being an antagonist to what it is to be a man. Why? Because under the regime and the family structure and all of that, the hierarchy that I was brought under, there was a certain way that I was supposed to act, and that felt like a prison. Even though as an adult, there are behaviors that I don't mind exhibiting that I was told I was supposed to act like, but it was the fact that I was told I was supposed to, not that I was allowed to act how I chose. And let's say, right, like now I choose to be identified as cisgendered male. But
Right.
that's because I made my choice. But that choice was denied to me for so long. Masculinity and femininity was denied to me for so long, or structured for me. So that's why I enjoy wearing skirts and doing all that shit for attention, because it's like, bitch, because I can.
Right. Pretty much, because you can and because you want to, period. So next comment I wanted to say to you. So they said BT is no longer as culturally enforces with Blackness as it should like back in the day, but more so helping to carry out such a satanic agenda.
Okay, so bullshit. Okay.
Right.
Because again, how you define Blackness? Lil Nas X is a Black man, hands down, categorically. There's no debate in that. But he's an intersectional body. He's Black while being gay, while being a Southerner, while being an American, while being, 19, 20 years old. He's all of those things at the same time. And what these hotepery type comments and people like to do is segment out Blackness as if it's this singular monolith of an identity. No, that's part of the problem. And if you look back at our movements and the way that we've had civil rights movements and things of that nature, that is oftentimes the thing that breaks us up, is because we don't look at as Blackness as an intersection of multiple identities. It's a very small sub niche of what they want to push, number one. Number two, you could argue that, BT, depending on who you, and that's why it's a cultural, it's an age thing, this type of comment. Yes. Depending on who you speak to, an older person may say, well, BET never played the Cosbys and, shows like that. They always play like hippity hop stuff that y'all listen to and destroying it. So someone could argue, when has BET ever been about the uplift of Black community, right? But again, it depends on their perspective. I think that they're really upset now because they're showing a different kind of Blackness. Mm-hmm. Gay and Black is a type of Black. Trans and Black, short and Black, poor and Black, rich and Black, loud and Black, quiet and Black, smart and Black, unintelligent and Black. All of those things, those ands, right? Too often we want to, especially as Black community, as even within the subsection of Black LGBT, too often we want people to be the ors of themselves instead of the ands of themselves. Mm. It's either you can be a woman or Black. Which one are you first? You can be gay or Black. Which one are you first? And people exist as ands. When I go to sleep, when I wake up, I don't know what it's like to not be in a gay body, in a almost 40-year-old body, in a Southern body, in a Black male body, and a Black body that came into the world through a white vagina. Like, I don't know how to not be any of those things simultaneously, because I've always been those things simultaneously. So allow me to define my Blackness and include those things in those definitions.
So next comment that I wanted to state to you was, I'm actually really happy that he did this in front of BET, because of the fact that being LGBT in the Black community is seen as revolting, and he's kissing them to show that this is who he is and there is no stopping him, no matter how angry they feel. So I think that was a really good point to put out. Like,
love that. Exactly. Keep doing it. Lil Nas X niece, if you come across this video, number one, there's an open spot for you at the House of Tisci. We would love to have you here. Number one.
There we go.
Number two, baby, if you just pull up on me anywhere and everywhere, I'm here to protect you. And when I say protect him, because when people are really pushing for progress, it can be a big burden to bear. I'm sure, as comfortable as he is in his outfit, as comfortable as he is with trolling people, there's still a part of you when the curtains go down and all the doors close, you think about that, and you have to unpack that, the weight of everyone viscerally attacking you for the simple fact of just wanting to kiss a man on television, which we've seen women and men kiss every day. So there's a lot for him to unpack. So I often say this, like, as a joke amongst our community, but I'm serious about that. We, the aunties of the community, need to protect our niece, Lil Nas X. We need to protect the Zaya Wades of the world, because they need to know that just as much as there's a world that is against them, there are those of us in the trenches that don't mind pulling up beside them like, no, baby, not that one.
Yeah.
Not that one.
Yeah. Wow. We are definitely in the end of our times. So ashamed of what my kids have to see now. God is real, and may he have mercy on us for what our world has come to. What are your thoughts?
So we weren't at the end of times when we were traveling across the Atlantic under boats. We weren't at the end of times when we had to go through Jim Crow.
Preach
we
it.
weren't at the end of times when women couldn't get jobs and didn't have autonomy over their body.
Preach
we weren't
it.
at the end of time. Like this whole we're at the end of times. First of all, people been saying that we're at the end of time since before we were born. So bitch, let them be the end of your times. Because our time is now, number one.
Yes.
Number two, the fact that you want to invoke God, I saw a meme today that kind of summed it up best. And it said, you know how you do the people speaking, it's like them or me. It was like God, me as a response. And the me was like, no, God said, love everybody. Don't worry, I'll sort it out later.
Yes.
So that's your responsibility to love on people.
Mm-hmm.
God will decide who did that correctly later on down the line. It is not up to us to decide who and what deserves love and deserves visibility and all of that, number one. Number two, if you don't want your children watching it, baby, then don't let them watch it. No one forces you to let them watch BET for an adult entertainment, because let's be clear, an awards show, unless it's the Nickelodeon Awards or something like that, an awards show is meant for adult eyes. Especially so the fact that you're allowing your children to watch adult media says more about you as a parent than it does about any of the performers that are performing.
Yes.
You have the autonomy and the responsibility for 18 years under our legal structure to raise your kids. But let me tell you something. While you want to raise your kids under that type of bigotry, I'm glad they're going to see that, because once they leave your house, we have to deal with them. We often hear, let people raise their kids the way they want to. And I say that's bullshit, because you get them for 18 years. We get them as adults.
Yeah.
And I don't need to be dealing with your broken ass children as adults because you wanted to make them seem like anything outside of what we have in this house doesn't belong in the world. Right. Because all of that is going to be out there. So you should be wanting to raise loving and tolerant children. Yeah. And so that often, like, we could go on and on about the God invocation and what that has done and the detriment of that.
Religion is that is a deep.
I just hate hearing that. And again, especially when it's like the physical attribute kind of conversation. I hate when things don't ever come up until people are ready to weaponize them and use it. Don't use God as a weapon for your hatred.
Right.
Yeah, I don't pay that no mind.
It's one of those. It's like, okay.
Religion is anti-progress. I'll say that.
Yes, but I do think people should have faith. I do think people should believe in something. The reason why I'm saying this is because I don't want people to think that you do not have a faith or that you don't believe in the higher power of something. Right. So
my issue and for clarity, yes, I do have beliefs in higher power and ancestors and ancestral worship and all of that. My thing though is, again, when that starts to become a weapon. Right, religion has caused most of the large wars on this planet were fought over religion.
It's all over religion. You're right.
So my thing, faith is supposed to be personal. Religion is supposed to be personal.
Absolutely.
Like oftentimes, as a joke, people are like, well, God told me. I'm like, well, I got some questions for him. Let me know when he calls you again.
Yeah.
Right. People love to say what God told them. Well, and this is my last little breakdown on religion for Black people specifically. Look at it this way. While we were praying to end our enslavement, our white masters was praying to the same God, thanking God for our enslavement because it gave them people to work their land and build their wealth. So you have two people praying to the same deity, and one of those people stayed enslaved for 200 years.
All right. Let's put a period to that one. Next comment is the fact that certain people are triggered by it just proves why it needed to be done. Good for him. Most of these complaining would have gone off on it if it was Nikki and a woman.
Yeah. And and that's the thing. And that's the thing about pushing the boundaries is because what people like to do is oftentimes pretend to be accepting or pretend to be embracing, but it's accepting or embracing with condition. And then as soon as you don't fall into their condition, then all of a sudden now you're not doing it right? So what he did broke a boundary. But let's be clear, 10 years ago, y'all wouldn't even wanted to have an open gay person on stage. But because he kissed a person, they'll now argue, well, we put you on the stage. Wasn't that enough? No, it's not enough. And now that he's kissed the person, the next person can do that. And I guarantee you in 10 years, they'll be like, y'all couldn't just stop at kissing. Remember when Lil Nas X kissed?
Right.
You couldn't just do that. Why do you got to do this other thing? They're always moving the bar, especially when it comes to the autonomy of LGBT. One quick sidebar, I'll give this example that I always give about like the line moving in the sand. Many of us in our communities, when we come out, our parents would like to say that they're accepting. They're like, you know, they do a deep breath. We have all the conversations. And this, I'm sure, is especially hard for people of trans existence. But when a lot of us come out, our parents, the first thing our parents said, at least to me and several of my friends, is, okay, but just don't come home in a dress.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
But
yeah.
do you realize how that has possibly stunted the progression of someone who's actually trans?
Oh,
right.
Absolutely.
So you're saying you're accepting of me, but only if I do it within a way that you're still comfortable. Because as soon as I start to exert my own autonomy over who I want to become, then there's a problem, right? And so what that does is think about a person who has to transition later in life, and now their parents are going to say, but you was gay all this time, why you got to do this? No, I only did that all that time because when I first came out, I really wanted to transition, but you made me feel uncomfortable about what I wanted to be making you feel uncomfortable. So I did this for that long, and I can't do it anymore. Right. And that's how it is with progress with gay people. We could, they wanted us to come out of the closet. And it's like, we did it that way. It's like all of these processes are always for them.
Yeah.
Right. Always make them feel comfortable. We got to come out to college. We got to tell you we're gay. We got to tell you we're trans up front. We can't kiss in public. We can't do all these things. Well, first of all, you relegated us to being in the dark and told us we don't know what love is like. We can't do this. And then we start to show you what it's like. It's like, oh no, that's nasty. Like, girl, just mind your fucking business. You don't like it, turn the channel.
You know how I kind of can see if someone that I know is really for the LGBTQ plus community is I give them this simple question. I pick someone that they are very, very close to or that have love for. I say, if your brother, your son were to date someone that is trans or gay or lesbian, would you have a problem? The first reaction, pay attention to, because then that is their honest reaction of how they're going to think, because that's how they think of you as a person, whoever is a part of the LGBTQ plus community, right? Like, because it's like, okay, you're going to see how they react to that question. They're going to really think, damn, am I going to have a problem with a loved one dealing with someone that's trans, gay, lesbian? And, you know, like,
right,
you want that for them. And if you're going to see how it is, you know, so that's just my take.
I like that one. And honestly, I think even within that spectrum, trans is really the big tester, because not only will you see how they think about trans people, you also see how they think about people who love trans people, right?
Absolutely.
So for instance, I asked someone, what would you think about your brother dating a trans woman? Oh, is he gay? That question alone lets me know that you don't see her as a woman.
Exactly, that's it.
And that, you know, everything that you think, right? You already exposed your entire hand.
Absolutely.
All you do is ask a question, but you already exposed your mind frame. That we already, first of all, we got to work on the fact that why you don't see this trans woman as a woman.
Right.
Before we even get back to your brother dating her, let's work on that. Right. So now you, like, to your point, they exposed, and now we get to see where they are in their struggle, or their understanding, or their struggle, or their acceptance.
Right.
Exactly. Of the community, because we hear that all the time in our community, right? Oh, I love the gays. I don't want my child to be gay.
Or they don't want no family member or someone that they're close to be a part of that community.
But it's like, you do realize that most all gay people were created by heterosexuals. And I say this as a kiki and as a slap to them. If y'all are so tired of gay people, stop creating us. Something's broken with your vagina and your penis that you keep creating us when you don't want us here.
No, you gotta stop it. Stop it.
No, but on some low-key shit, is that not like...
It's the truth.
Like, we're a byproduct of heterosexual sex and heterosexual love. So it's like, you're condemning us for what your body's created.
It's the truth. It's the truth. So next, Gunner, you're gonna make the people go crazy up in these comments. Okay, so next comment was disgusting and highly offensive. Except a show like this is coming from a white-owned television company operating in the name of Black entertainment. Shaking my head.
Yes, so yes, B.E.T is now owned and operated by white people. And again, this is the thing that I was talking on earlier. Black people, stop weaponizing certain things. You didn't care that B.E.T has been white owned and operated for quite some time. But when you was watching your Love and Hip Hops and your all that on the television show, you wasn't complaining. But now that they let a black gay man kiss,
Right.
now all of a sudden, oh, it's the white agenda. It's the look, everything that is anti your identity of blackness isn't the white agenda. It is actually black bodies saying, hey, count us in the black sphere
Thank you.
too.
Yes, it's the truth. It is the truth. The next comment I wanted to share with you was, hey, I'm all for gay rights and spreading message of tolerance and acceptance. However, I just feel that Kiss is really a stunt to exploit the LGBT movement. As a gay man, I just don't get the genuineness of this act. For an artist, I hardly know. It's simple a publicity stunt. Now, if Usher, Chris Brown, or Jason Derulo did that, I would stand up and applaud with all of my heart. Now, what do you think about that comment?
I think that person has a lot of Homo Mesia, right? There's a lot
There you
of
go.
internal-
Now dive into that word, because I've seen that you were on live on you guys. If you guys haven't checked his lives out on Facebook, definitely check them out. So I've seen you talk about that on your Facebook lives about that word. So can you just dive into what that is?
Sure. So we think about the LGBT space and what we've been for the last 50, 60 years, trying to push for visibility and acceptance. You had terms come up like homophobia, transphobia, which is the fear of phobia is a suffix you add to the end of anything. You can be arachnophobic, so your arachna is spiders, so you're afraid of spiders. But for me, it's misplaced. It allows people to say, I'm not homophobic, I'm not scared of anything. You're right. You're Homo Mesia, right? And Mesia is a suffix you add to things that you hate, that you have, it's an abomination, it's abhorrent to your existence. You literally hate this thing. Whether it's intentional, whether it's truly active, there's different scales. There can be different scales of the hate, right? Maybe the hate isn't I want to go bomb everybody, but the hate is don't be visible, don't have space. And a lot of us as gay people have internalized a lot of the condemnation that we have. So a lot of us actually suffer from it ourselves because it's one of those things we want acceptance so bad that when we're in the spaces that we want acceptance in, we want other bodies that are performing in that space to tone it down and police themselves because you should be honored to be in that space, right? And it's like, no, we have to look at it from a different perspective. They should be honored to have Lil Nas X come into their very Homo Mesia space and say, bitch, I'm here. So a lot of that, and then the other thing so that's one of the parts of unpacking that statement. The other part is Lil Nas X is someone you don't know. So you don't know how authentic the kiss was or the act of the kiss or what he meant behind it was. It could very much be authentic in the sense that it was intentional. He knew what it was going to be for. And so he did it. You know, oftentimes, and you know this as a fellow creative, oftentimes when people don't agree with what the creative is creating, they like to box us into, oh, they're doing that as a gimmick or they're doing that. It's a way to dismiss or undermine our creative process and what we decided to create. Right. And it's like, but this same person who left this comment, you're not in that space to push that boundary. So who are you to determine that he was inauthentic, number one? Number two, why would you, he said he would clap if Usher or someone, why would you clap if a heterosexual person performed as homosexual? We've seen that before, right? Go to Tu Wong Fu, go to Martin Lawrence, go to all these black men who put on wigs and commodify and monetize the existence of black and brown women, but have no love for the LGBT, right? So I don't know why you would clap for a man performing a homosexual act when the act of kissing doesn't even make Lil Nas X a homosexual. Let's start there. Right. The attraction toward men. I can kiss my sister right now. It doesn't necessarily make me trans amorous or trans attracted. It's a kiss. Right. Sexuality and sexual identity and gender identity is so much more nuanced and complex that even a lot of times we don't understand it. But to that point, it's Homo Mesia again. We're trying to police the people that are doing the work. Lil Nas X is doing the shocking and the gagging, which is making it easier for the butch queens of the world who aren't going to do that, right? So he put on a dress. So it's going to be easier for me to put on pants and a shirt because what does that do? That allows people who want to relegate black people to say, ooh, well, at least Gunner's not like Lil Nas X. So now my space is safer. Yeah. And now I want to, because I've gotten that adjacency to this community and power, now I side with them, you know? And that happens a lot. It happens with race issues. It happens with gender issues. When women are led into spaces where men are at, they will oftentimes relegate other women, right? You have women that get accepted into spaces that men are in, and they're like, well, girl, if only you would look less like this and less like this and less like that. Baby, you are in a safe space that they allowed you space into because they knew that you were going to be an agent for them and their agenda. I am not here to try to liberate Black alternative bodies so that I can have Black alternative bodies that aren't doing the work tell us what that liberation needs to look like.
So the next question I wanted to ask you was, I want to ask Father Gunner, does he feel like Lil Nas X is using his LGBT status to further his career?
I feel like he's doing as we all do. Use what you got to get what you want.
That's it.
He's using his existence. He's telling his story. He's using his journey that he's on to commodify it, right? So that's the other thing about Black creativity, Black and brown creativity, is that we often create from a space of necessity for a voice, right? When you think about our music, our arts, our dances, it usually comes from a space of oppression where we didn't have space to be performative. So we created something. When spoken word, jazz, ballroom, hip hop, all of these came out of oppression to say, hey, we have a voice. I need to get this out, right? And so to then turn around and try to police that art form and how people can use that vehicle because they may not be having the same voice you have. And then, like we said earlier, to relegate it and say it's inauthentic or that he's using it, to me, it's demonstrative, it's reductive, and it's really insulting to this man, to this very young man who very early in his career, when gay people told him, he shouldn't have came out of the closet. His career is going to be over. And yet here we now have one of the top selling, top grossing, longest running single young men in the history being a Black queer man, a Black gay man.
Yes.
Like if he wouldn't have done those things, we as a community, Black butch queens that are watching this, that feel that he needs to butch it up and not do this and not do that, you wouldn't even have anybody to complain or brag about. We would still be talking about all the homophobes and how they don't let us into spaces, right? So people have to make those boundaries. And it just it's disheartening when we're trying to break those boundaries and you get it from your own community. Like as you probably saw from my live a little bit earlier, yes, I understand a Homo Mesia from straight people. But when it comes from inside, it hurts a whole lot more.
Yes, that really is like a dagger twisting.
Yeah, it's like we're doing the work for us in this space, and you're relegating me. Like, why would you do that? You know. And one of the things I wanted to touch on is groundbreaking as this video, as this performance is. Black bodies have to always integrate spaces, and it's Black queer bodies. Because Michael Jackson, I would assume that he's heterosexual, he has children, he was attracted to women, we only saw him with women, but he was what I would still consider a queer body in the sense that he was different, he pushed boundaries in his expression. Prince, same thing. This is a straight man in heels with his butt cut out, right? They made people uncomfortable. The same way that Lil Nas X just integrated the BET stage, which has never been performed by an openly gay person, right? Just 2 years ago, the same community that's upset with Lil Nas X was upset that BET didn't invite the trans cast of Pose to the award show. Right. So how do you want it? Like, we want those spaces, or do we not? And when we're in those spaces, we're going to make them uncomfortable. We're going to always make them uncomfortable because we're not going to conform to their heterosexual norm. What he did is no different to me than what Michael Jackson did when he integrated MTV. When they did not have a space for Black performance debuting on MTV, and Michael Jackson said, "Hey girl, tap 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 tap." Is this thing on? And then after him, you had Janet, you had more, and then now all of a sudden MTV was integrated. It's the same thing. You need the shop job so that everybody else can feel comfortable. That's just how it always has been.
Okay.
That's why when you got a group of friends, here's a word to the wise. When you got a group of friends and you got that one friend that's loud and boisterous, let that bitch into the room first. Because once all the attention on her, you get to slide on through and walk to the bar and get your cocktail all quietly. Okay. A lot of y'all do, go be unseen and let the bitches who are being seen and creating spaces for people do their work.
To make you feel comfortable.
To make you feel comfortable.
Right.
You get to slide to the bar now because your friend was loud.
Right.
You get to sit in the audience next time as a stylist or a hairdresser at a B.E.T concert because Lil Nas X kissed the man on stage. And I loved his response. Did you see his response?
Oh, I loved everything about Lil Nas's response, his reactions to his trolling, to all of it, to give no fucks, to all of it.
I love it. He said, oh, well, next time I'm going to fuck a man on stage.
Work, Miss Lil Nas, honey. So this final question, well, not question, this final comment from one of the subscribers was, I respect that he's himself. Now that this is just my opinion, and I mean no offense, when it comes to the flamboyance, I hope that's 100% his choice. I feel like Hollywood has a tendency to take advantage of gay men and put them into a bubble that they can only act a certain way. There are gay men who do prefer to be more masculine. Do you, Nas X? ? What do you think?
I think that's unimportant. I think who Nas X chooses to be and allows to push him in what direction he doesn't owe Black masculine gay men anything. As we said earlier, it's the underbelly, the most fringe that pushes the boundaries. If we were waiting on Black masculine men for our liberation, we would still be in 1950.
There you go.
Black masculine blending, and it's no shade to trans or to gays. To trans and gay people who are able to blend and go through society unscathed, they have not been the ones to historically push the boundary. Why? Because they blend. They don't challenge anything. Nothing grows when everyone's comfortable. Right? So it is the flamboyant man. It's the Marsha P. Johnson. It's the clockable trans woman walking down the street. It's the loud drag queen with the rainbow bright colors on.
Absolutely.
It's all of that pushes and makes space for those masculine identified men. You know, and tying this back to previous conversations, because, you know, in my head, all of these things are really connected because that's how systems work.
All connected. They're all connected.
It goes back to like us trying to appease Hollywood with ballroom. Like, we should never, like, we want acceptance from the communities that ousted us, but not at the expense of conformity to what they want, right? Because that's why they ousted us, because we wasn't who they wanted us to be. But the other question the rebuttal to the viewer that I would ask, or to the subscriber, is that how much of you on a daily basis is truly you? A lot of bitches don't like to go to work. They don't like the uniform they have to put on. They don't like the clothes they have to wear out in society. They don't want to get up every day and do all that work to go out. Because every day that we get up and we do the whole shit and show and iron our clothes and do that, we're getting in drags. We're putting ourselves in a aesthetic that we think is going to be pleasable to the job we're going to, or to the people we're about to be around, to the club we're going to. So how much of any of us is really truly us? We don't know until the people that make us uncomfortable start to make us examine who we really are. And that's what he's doing. He's making a lot of masculine gay butch queens examine, who am I really? Instead of asking who Lil Nas is, ask, who are you? Why does his flamboyancy make you so uncomfortable? When, let's be clear, from Black and people of color, we are a loud and vivacious and flamboyant people. Sexuality aside, you go to any Caribbean, you go to any shore of Mexico, any shore of Brazil, any shore, we are loud, it's colorful, we love loud, we scream loud, we cry loud, we celebrate loud. That's what we do. So we talk about being flamboyant, is because of our Black and brown cultures a long time ago recognized what it meant to be loud and authentically yourself and unique, right? So a lot of these things that make us uncomfortable, what I would like for us to do, and what I would like for subscribers to do, what I ask my house kids to do and the community to do, is start to really, instead of looking at that person as that person, look at that person as a mirror, and start to unpack the things in you that they made uncomfortable.
That was, you actually basically right then, just that sentence alone, I think you answered my question I was going to ask you next, was how can we as a community make ourselves more comfortable within our own community?
By making ourselves uncomfortable.
Right. you basically you answered the question by saying, just look in the mirror and just figure out what makes you so uncomfortable about that situation.
Because it's truly a reflection typically of, you know, your own self internalized biases and things you've been taught.
Absolutely.
Lil Nas kissing is a reflection to heterosexuals that they are uncomfortable with a person kissing who they want to kiss. It's not about him kissing somebody. It's about you being uncomfortable with him kissing somebody. So you need to worry about why someone putting their lips on someone else is a problem with you.
And I think that's where a lot of the hatred stems from anyway, from that, you know? So,
I mean, we talk about violence against trans women. A lot of that happens by men who are attracted to trans women, not necessarily because they have some ulterior motive, because they always have that society nagging in the back of them. Oh, that's a faggot.
That's
it.
Like,
no. It's not that. Like, if we could love who we want to love and just be that, and that's why stuff like this is so important. These kind of conversations and these kind of actions by people is because ultimately we want to lead to a space where people, autonomous adults, right? Because that's where the people try to come in and say, "Oh, well, I want to love on kids," and nobody's saying that we should be going around loving on kids. That's just nasty. Don't even try to interject that as an argument for homosexuality.
Yeah,
that's just nasty. But really, we want to get to a
clear,
space
they have popes and bishops and stuff.
Children. And let's not think that exposing your children to different types of people in the world is gonna make them gay or push a gay agenda on them. Like I said, I know plenty of bitches that watch the Cosbys that never went to college. So what did the Cosbys do for you? Nothing.
Right.
I know plenty of gay people that grew up watching straight television and we still gay as fuck. And that's the thing too that irks me, like even with this Lil Nas X thing, is that it is oftentimes our biggest critics and oftentimes the biggest naysayers are the people that aren't willing to be on the foreline, the people who aren't willing to be on the front line and do the work. You know, the people who want to literally sit back and criticize the art that other people are making. You know, I've often said this I'm in a lot of masculine Black gay Facebook groups and stuff, right? Because trade. It's
the trade, you know,
the presentation is everything, you know. Your brother been able to change up the look a lot of times, you know. But you know, so I'm in these groups and you know, it's like the notion of visibility and what Blacks should and shouldn't do and wanting to be visible only come up when there's something you want to talk about and speak negatively on. Before this BET performance, I would ask this to the viewers as I ask this to my brothers. How much work was you doing for Black masculine representation, Black gay masculine representation? If you were doing none prior to this kiss, you don't get to relegate his kiss.
Nothing, right? Nothing. Don't zip it. Just pay attention and learn at this point. Learn.
Like, if you're not on the forefront.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you're not out there doing the work.
And mind you, the work consists of just exactly what we're doing right now is conversations.
Right.
It doesn't mean that you have to go be this big old advocate of this and being at this town hall for this and going to these social programs for this. It can be as simple as just these simple conversations that we're having now that can reach the masses because you never know who is listening.
Right. And you know, and those conversations need to be had in a way that is intellectual, that they're open for being discomfort, open for receiving information. Again, going back to some of these groups and things that I'm in, love these brothers to death, but they create these groups as safe havens for their bigotry within the community, right? It's like it's the no facts, no films issue. It's like the fat and film bodies is what made it safe for you.
For you.
So
right.
You're not out there pushing and fighting for liberation. So I don't get to sit in my house and be like, she should have wore that outfit to the march. But bitch, you're sitting in your house.
Right. It doesn't make sense. Make it make sense.
You know, Lil Nas X should be making videos about this. Where's your girlfriend with her video camera? Why don't you make the video about what you want to see? That goes back to the old saying, if you want change, be the change you want to see.
Yes.
Right? If people want different representations of gay, which I encourage, right? And that's the thing. I too, as a masculine presenting butch queen, would love to see more masculine presenting representation in television. But that doesn't mean it has to come at the expense of feminine representation. They should be able to see themselves too.
Yeah, I wanted to dive in. We got into the conversations of what are your thoughts about our own community being against our community, and now I wanted to give your thoughts and your take on what you can give some words to the cis hetero community that might have something to say about his performance, some words of wisdom, some words of growth, because this is important to have.
Right.
Not an attack, it's more so to better understand us as a community.
Right. I would say what I want to say that we've always been here. There's not more of us now than there was before. We're just more visible. We're not a threat to cisgender heteronormativity, right? At a very fundamental biological level, we recognize that penis and egg and sperm and egg have to meet. So humanity will never completely remove itself from that. No species that participates in homosexual activity, and there are plenty mammalian species that participate in homosexual activity, if you want to call it that, but they never outnumber the natural order of things, which is how a species must reproduce. There will always be attraction there. That's going to be at a cellular level. So we're not a threat for that, but we are normal that there's always differences within any type of population or species. We've always been here. We're not here to threaten that. All we're saying is give us space and autonomy. The same way, speaking specifically to cishet Black community, the same way that we were alongside y'all. Like, this is the thing that I made a post before that said, and for what I want them to recognize is that our Blackness is Black too. Our brownness is brown too. When cishet Black and brown people were slaves, cishet Black and brown gay people were slaves. When cishet Black and brown people were fighting for liberation and fighting the civil rights, cishet Black and gay people were fighting for the same civil rights. We have been with you every step of the way. And we have fought alongside you and for you every step of the way. Anytime I turn on the television and I see that another Black man has been killed by a cop, or another Black woman has been killed by a cop, it stings and hurts me equally as much as when I turn on the television and see that a Black trans woman has been killed by a lover, right? We are Black bodies under attack, regardless if we're straight or gay or poor or rich or all of that. There's a commonality that we have as humanity under structures of power that we have to fight. So we're not here to threaten that. We're here to add to. We're here to add to the beauty of, the Black and brown existence and the art and humanity and all of that. We're not here to take away from it.
And then when they speak on, a lot of it is going to stem from their religion and their beliefs. So now stem into that.
And so even with religion and belief, I would challenge you to ask yourself, number one, and again, not saying that no one shouldn't have faith, but ask yourself, especially as I guess our target audience, for a lot of our target audience, right, is cishet brown and Black people in America and under the Western construct. Ask yourselves questions like, why, when our people were brought here, was everything stripped from them but English and Christianity? Ask yourself, why are you a Christian? And when I say ask yourself that, really take a time to look in that mirror and unpack. At what point did you choose to? Because you probably didn't. You were probably indoctrinated. From young, right? So a lot of who we are is indoctrination. A lot of the beliefs that we have are indoctrinated. And I'm not saying indoctrination has to be a nasty word, right? Because love and care and sympathy and empathy can also be indoctrinated as well. So I'm not trying to undermine the entire religious system. What I am undermining is the fact that something that on the surface says it's rooted in love and care and God is always used, or not always, but a lot of times used as a weapon formed against people that don't agree with whatever your particular dogma is. And that religion is for you, it's for your liberation, as much as Christianity, or as much as the major Abrahamic religions, the major three, makes it their mission to convert people. Stop that shit. Your religion is for you. At the end of the day, the way that you came into this world as a sales meeting and as a singular entity, you're gonna leave this world and your judgment is gonna be on that singular entity, right? So don't think that you need to save us. so that we can go somewhere, right? If we're out here, you know, putting our lives in danger, performing risky behaviors and stuff like that, sure, humanity, let's work on that. Let's make society a better place, right? So, you know, we talk about, you know, the religious aspects and dealing with black LGBT youth. Let's stop kicking our children out of the household and then saying that everything that happened after the fact is on them, right? You can't kick me out, make me homeless, and then say, oh my God, you're a prostitute. Yeah, I'm homeless at 14. You know what I'm saying? You can't demonize me for the things I have to do as a reaction to. And a lot of that is religious dogma. A lot of the deviant behaviors that oftentimes cisheads see us performing in are rooted in the fact that all of our lives you told us that we weren't shit.
Yeah.
So for the parents out there that will tell their children, oh, you're a faggot, you're homo, you ain't nothing. Well, once they start to believe that, that is going to send them down a long line of behaviors that are destructive to them because they don't have self-love.
Right.
So what I want to tell is if we started actually leading with love, a lot of behaviors would change.
So now I want to ask you, what words would you like to say to our allies out there?
Push forward, push harder. Because I like the concept of the term ally, but too often the term ally starts to feel very like neoliberalism. You know, it's where it's kind of aggressive again until I feel uncomfortable. People are allies. People will call themselves allies and be like, this like we've had in some of the questions earlier today in the statements, how it starts off is, I appreciate the gay community, no disrespect, no point, nothing. But can y'all just?
Right. Yeah.
It's like, but how often do you hear us? Now imagine the flip side of that. If we started off saying, heterosexuals, we love you, X, Y, Z, but can y'all just? Now they'll say, oh, there goes that agenda. Well, you don't think that what you just did was an agenda? When you said, I love you and accept you, but can y'all just? So when you say ally, if you want to be an ally, number one, to me, and this goes in most fringe communities, as an ally, you don't need to take up space. You don't need to be the face. You don't need to be at the forefront. You're there in a supporting role. And oftentimes what happens with allyship is people, they want to become the voice for, or they want to be the savior of the community. And oftentimes they will do it in ways that they think that the community wants or needs. And that's not what we're asking for at all, right? As an ally, sometimes I just want you to just come and sit at the back and fill up the room. I don't need you to have a voice. We know what we want to say. We just need bodies present. So just go in the back. Or stand in the front line and take some of the bullets for us and take some of the hits for us. Oh, I don't want to be in danger. Well, we would be in danger if you weren't here. So thank you. We no longer need your services. Oh, well, I want to speak. I don't need you to speak.
Right.
This is what we need you for. If you want to be a true ally, and this goes across all, and I do this kind of work across different types of sub-communities, right? Black, gay, trans, different types of communities. When people want to be an ally, show up and ask the specific community that you're trying to allyship with, what is it that you need from me and for me to do? And those are the only things that you should be obligated to. Stop coming in thinking that you have solutions, because even as an ally, what you should remember is that you still come from the community that helped to create the situation where we needed allies. So you don't get to tell us what our solutions need to be. Let us tell you how we can utilize you. And if that's not something you want to do, then step to the side. Don't force your type of allyship onto us.
Okay. That's good. And then finally, my last question I wanted to ask you was, what words would you have to our LGBTQ plus youth, our future?
Keep the fuck doing y'all. I love it. Keep being unapologetic. Keep knocking down respectability politics barriers. Don't listen to bitches like me that's old and older people that tell you how you should be gay and what gay should look like, because we've reached the age where we're comfortable. Continue to break down these boundaries. What is so beautiful about your generation is that it is so intersectional, and you're breaking down a lot of respectability politics across the gamut. It's not just like you're doing so much work simultaneously that is just phenomenal. And you're resting on those shoulders of people who wanted to do that work. So understand that the work that you're doing is not in vain. It is really pushing the needle as it should. It's going to be hard at times. It is going to feel like a burden, you know, because that's the thing. Freedom ain't free.
No.
Freedom is not free. Freedom comes with heavy burden and heavy cost to pay. So just know that you do have some old people that are behind you and supporting you.
Absolutely.
And want to show up for you in ways that you just need to let us know. I want to provide my shoulders for them to stand on so they can see much further than I've ever seen.
Yeah.
I want them to go further than I ever thought a Black butcher could go.
Yes.
So
absolutely.
That's
Thank
it.
you
Just
for that.
keep doing you, being fearless. Know that it gets hard, but know that you're not alone. Know that you are on a journey that many queer bodies have taken on for eons. Suicide doesn't have to be a way out. Fear doesn't have to be a way out. Closeting and hiding doesn't have to be a way out. Now, I'm not saying be foolish. There are things that we have to do in this life to be safe. You know, so sometimes we do have to make concessions. If you're living with your parents, you're underage. Right. There are certain things, you know, we may have to do to keep you safe. Or if you feel like you're not safe in their environment, know that there are people out here that you can reach out to. Gay families didn't happen by chance. They happened by necessity. They happened out of love. Yes. This is what we do. I have taken in 16, 17-year-olds and raised them to have full, fruitful lives. There are people that you can reach out to. And just live and know that this journey at the end of the day is ultimately yours. It's not your parents. Know that your parents pissed off their parents for things that they did, and their parents pissed off their parents. So if you pissing off your parents, it's okay, baby. You doing what they did. But now they are at a place where they can tell you who you should be, but they're not even the people that their parents told them to be.
Work. That's right. So that ended this conversation. Again, thank you so very much for coming on. I totally appreciate it, babe. And you know, nothing but love. And I hope you guys seen that this was very educational. It was very necessary, and it was very imperative to have these conversations because whether you understand it, whether you agree with it, whether you don't agree with it, I mean, I think these conversations need to be had. And thank you for giving your insight, your input, and your knowledge of stuff for this conversation. I think you were the right person for this conversation. You guys, I'm going to list all of his social medias down in the description box below. So make sure you guys go check him out, follow him, support him. Also, I did want you to mention all of your merch, everything that you got going on right now.
You can check out my website, www.gunnerdoyle.com. My current release is the tank tops for the summer. It's the Mackenzie collection. I'm going to be releasing tank tops maybe like one every 2 to 3 weeks. So the first one that's been released is, I call her the Mother.
Yes.
So it's a pink tank top. It's with an African print on the front of a Swahili woman. Mackenzie means love. A lot of my brand focus is positive messaging about love, LGBT, Afrocentricity, diaspora love. So yeah, I have a few of these that are going to be coming out in the coming months. Like here's one print. Here's a print.
Yes.
So these will be dropping. They'll be dropping on like every 2 weeks. I'll drop a different print. I have 6 prints. So that'll take us through the summer. Again, the pink one is the one that's on the way now. I'm bringing back the African Heartbeat collection. So I'll be bringing out shorts.
Love that.
I will also be bringing back my Afro Funk collection.
Oh, love that.
So this on the back is going to say Afro Funk, and what it says. And each one, there's going to be, I think there were like 9 or 10 of these. I'll definitely in the comments, I'll come and like post some pictures and stuff in the comments and stuff. But like the back of this one reads, around a flowering tree, there are many insects.
Yes.
And it's a Guinean proverb. And so what that means is, and this ties into what we were talking about today, right?
Yeah.
Around something that is flowering, that is blossoming, that is doing the work, there are going to be a lot of things that are agitating it, that are in the way, that are swarming. And so you just have to know that you're the flower. You're the flowering tree. And and because you're beautiful and because you are great, you are going to attract great things, water, sunlight, air, oxygen, all of that. But you're also going to attract insects and things that are going to pluck and pick at you. But yeah, so definitely go check that out. You can also go check out the Tisci Instagram page. We just got all the sweatshirts in. There has been, for anybody that's watching that ordered one already, there was a little bit delay. So literally I have 4 big boxes of over 200 tank tops over here that I will be processing and pushing out. Now we have two prints that are currently out. I'm releasing a 3rd print. I do have an old print that people are asking me to bring back that says I'm rooting for everybody Tisci. That'll be dropping again. You can check that out on the House of Tisci Instagram. I'll make sure Sis gets that and we put that down in the comments. But yeah, just so much stuff coming out. I have hair brushes on there. I'm working on boxer briefs and just everything. Just follow the page, child. Just follow. It's always something coming out with me.
Like I said, support him, like him, share all of his stuff.
And if you can't purchase, I've always said this on my page, a share is just as important. I mean, obviously the purchase is great, but for every person who can't purchase, if you can share 10 times, you may come across one person who could purchase. So you've also helped, support Black businesses.
I agree. Again, thank you so much, babe, for coming on. I totally appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
I know all of my subscribers will appreciate it and love it as well. And but yeah, thank you so much, babe. Mwah.
Thank you. Bye, y'all.
Bye, babe.
Okay, you guys, so that is the end of my interview with one of the founding fathers of the House of Tisci, Father Gunner Tisci. And we talked about Lil Nas X and his 2021 BET performance, as well as diving into in-depth of just stuff that needed to be addressed, stuff that needed to be talked about, the underlining root issues of why people feel the way they feel, or accepting or not accepting. So I hope that you guys really took some really educational thought and just some advice that me and Gunner were talking about. I really hope that you guys really gained something from this interview, because these are the conversations that really need to be had. I think it's imperative for everyone to have these conversations with someone that is part of the Black and brown community, because it's really truly their voices that really need to be heard. And again, you guys, thank you guys so much from the bottom of my heart for just really sharing, liking, subscribing. And if you guys haven't already, definitely hit the subscribe button right there, right in the corner. Hit that notification bell if you guys haven't already, and make sure you hit that thumbs up button if you guys haven't already, because it truly does help my channel out so much. And you guys, until the next video, remember, life is your vision. It is whatever you make it, as long as you make it freaking fabulous. Until the next one, you guys, bye.